PC sales for Metaphor Refantagio, I don't know how you say it, has exceeded Altus's expectations, says director Katsura Hashino. PC games accounted for a larger portion of the title sales. Their survey results showed that the percentage of PC users playing their games is rising year by year. This was reported by Automaton Media, and Hazardo Gaming Dragon of Dojima is basically putting it out here. Another user, Fritata, says, "That's why your exclusives are going away," to which Hazardo Gaming Dragon of Dojima replies and says, "Y'all won't stop until Icon Era makes me into prime target." Well, it doesn't matter what Icon Era or anybody says, this is just the reality. These companies are seeing success on the PC platform. You know what's funny is actually many of them have been seeing success on the PC platform. It's just that for the most part, they, at that time were probably more invested in console development. PC seemed kind of like an outlier for some of these publishers. And at the end of the day, a lot of people moving to PCs these days are taking their tastes and preferences with them. So, for instance, let's say somebody who was into the kinds of games that, Atlas, that's it, Altus, Atlas was making all this while, and then they decided they were going to start playing on PC. When they saw Metaphor, I'm sure they probably looked and said, "I'm definitely buying this on Steam." Some people, they play on Xbox, and their games have the ability to be able to carry on cross-platform if the game is a play anywhere game, of which, if you look at, a significant number of some of these games that are enjoying this kind of a rise in PC, they also carry the Xbox Play Anywhere logo. So look at Metaphor Metaphor Refantagio, it's an Xbox Play Anywhere title. So perhaps you may have Xbox players who take advantage of that and have the accessibility to play the game on multiple platforms. So these are some of the things that we're seeing in terms of trends. I saw an audience member's comment where they were talking about how, PlayStation going to the PC platform did not seem like they were fully committed to actually doing that because they just don't want to leave money on the table, And I'm like, well, how are they not committed when they're to doing something when they're actually doing the thing? The money that's been there has been basically the inspiration for the commitment to move ahead and actually go in there and make more money. Which brings me to a conversation about console sales and this talk right now about Xbox being third party. PlayStation doesn't have as many games right now as Xbox in the making, yet their 75 million consoles cannot even sustain their games in terms of people buying them compared to Nintendo. Xbox, who has way more games, even if they had 75 million consoles sold, it still will not be able to go ahead and sustain those games. Many of those games will fail and pretty much be botched because of the live service takeover and the saturation of the market. So it makes sense that these games are actually removed from exclusivity barrier, that the exclusivity barriers are removed from them, and the games are basically taken to other gamers that are out there, because that's the way you're going to go ahead and make money. Of which, if you come to the PC thing, Xbox has been doing it since 2016. Remember when I told you guys that I think the way that Xbox was able to sustain itself in the days that it was losing the console war to PlayStation was by selling its software on Steam. I made that case over many videos where I went, bit by bit, and I showed you the top, games measured by gross revenue on Steam, and we started from like 2017. Shout out to Princess Peaches, audience member who pulled the 2017 and 2018 data, where we saw that that trend probably kicked off with more force around the 2020 timeframe, with some 2019 games being top sellers on Steam themselves. So these gaming studios that were making games for Xbox at the time were able to pretty much stay afloat because their games were doing well on PC. They hadn't moved to PlayStation at the time. That was not in their business strategy, I think, or maybe it would have been there. But once they decided they were going to go ahead and acquire Activision Blizzard King and put their hands into acquiring more content, it just made sense. Even if right now you double the number of Xbox consoles, add what we have on PC, which will put it around, I don't know how many million users, you still cannot sustain the number of games that are just releasing even if they didn't go on Game Pass. You know what I mean? Like, just think about PlayStation with 75 million units and selling only 2 million units of Astrobot and about the same for Stellar Blade. This should already be the math that inspires your senses to say, wait. You mean to tell me that the more hardware that you sell doesn't, is not directionally proportional to the amount of software that you sell? And the answer is yes. It all depends on the game. So what the best methodology is that you hedge your bets and you hedge yourself and you move your games or your properties to where the gamers are. So Xbox and PlayStation are doing the same thing. They've all moved themselves to PC, a very sustainable ecosystem for them to go ahead and make money. In fact, if you think about it and put it in a much more graphical methodology, you'll notice that right now, PlayStation has about 24 games on PC. Yeah, 24 titles if we actually go in on Steam. Xbox, on the other hand, has probably something along the lines of maybe, 30 or more, in terms of like a more recent, let's go ahead and just look at it. Let's just go ahead and look at it. More recent efforts that they've actually put into play. Let's look for the Oblivion game. I mean, it's a lot, guys, because there are multiple publishers actually here. Let me show you something that will probably make it a little bit more difficult. So let's say Flight Simulator, right? Flight Sim. Microsoft Flight Simulator is under Xbox Game Studios. When you click Xbox Game Studios, it's only going to show you Xbox Game Studios games, right? It's not going to show you Bethesda's games. So with all of these games that Xbox actually has access, to, and this is just the Xbox Game Studios titles, right? Then when you go and click Bethesda or find a Bethesda game, like say the Oblivion, remaster, or whatever it is, that you can see basically up here. This is Clair Obscur is the game that's out. Let's look at top sellers list. Over here, we're going to be able to find the Oblivion remake. That then takes you to Bethesda Software. Bethesda Softworks as a publisher. They're not yet publishing on Steam under the Xbox or Microsoft logo. I think Microsoft and Xbox just left a lot of things like that. Then they now have a good, huge number of games where some of them may come as remasters, anthologies, and sequels. So what that has done is that's actually inflated the number of IP that PlayStation has. And you can probably put the number at close to, maybe 55 to 70. I don't know. I'm just throwing a number out there. And so if they have this much IP, how do people expect for them where these guys that have 75 million, units sold still have to go to PC? They got about 30 million units. They also have to go to not only just PC, but also go to PlayStation. And if possible, they got to go to Nintendo Switch so that they can pretty much sustain all of these games that they have. It's insane. They now have more titles that they have to basically be custodians of. And it's pretty much a big problem. It's a good, positive problem for the gamers, but it's also a managerial problem for them. How are they going to be able to maintain a sustainable ecosystem if they do not move their games to other platforms? So even if PlayStation woke up tomorrow and maybe say doubled, this number of games from 24 to 48, it would need a place to go and basically sell those games. Because even if it doubled its console use from 75 million to, 150 million units, those games are still, those consoles are still going to be plagued by the same challenges that the 75 million with the ratio to 24-ish games, in terms of what's been coming since 2020, are facing. So they'll need somewhere to go in and make money. And I don't think that they're going to, at that point, be looking, at the Switch as a bad idea or even the Xbox as a bad idea. It's something very interesting that a lot of people have not necessarily thought about, which is the sustainability of the business. And right now, anybody who's not playing the sustainable game is going to get fried. But if you actually play your cards right and you serve your audience, you're going to pretty much see the success, if they love the games, that, you may be either expecting, or maybe success that might blow your mind. And you'll be able to stay in business and continue to make more games and serve those audiences. I mean, if you think about what's going on right now under Atlas, they're coming out with another game as well, too. I think it's called Raidu or something like that. So they're busy, pumping games out because they're games that they're selling. They're seeing, improvement. They're seeing increase in their, in their fan bases and in their audiences and customers. So right now, I think this is definitely the play that everybody has been following. In fact, if you look at PlayStation from 2020, they followed the same play. Xbox followed the same play as well. Well, Xbox kind of kicked it into gear in 2016. And so these companies all want to see money. So expect, as PlayStation launches more games, to be looking for places to put them. And this is just a trend that you're going to see as we continue to look at the gaming industry. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for watching the video. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.